Rob Grimes with the IFBTA, and I'm really pleased to welcome our newest global industry partner member, IBM, and also Jason Kelly, who is the Global General Manager for IBM Blockchain. So welcome to the IFBTA and welcome to a rainy day in Maryland.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Rob.
So I'm thinking that everybody knows who IBM is, but I'm not so sure that everybody knows IBM's engagement in the food and beverage industry. So maybe we should just sort of start by introducing IBM that way.
Well, when we think about IBM as a whole, you think IBM is this now close to 109-year-old startup. And I say that because we have continued to reinvent ourselves year in, year out. And so it is a company that has come from putting people on the moon and bringing them home safely to now, as you ask, what are you doing in food and beverage industry? So you can think of the hardware that's behind there. You could think of that. You could think at one point we did point of sale. At one point we also had many of the PCs that were there. So we have a long history with the industry in providing help. So now the question is, but what are you doing now? And as we have transitioned to a platform cloud-based company, and what does that mean? That means that we're providing services in a platform and through the cloud to the industry on the way that they operate their businesses.
So you consider yourself a services company, even though you still are in the hardware business to some extent?
So to some extent, we're significantly in the hardware business. All of this new cloud compute capability requires machines that are even more secure, that can move even faster, and can be smaller, run at cooler temperatures, and take larger loads, and most importantly, secure and transmit and transact with data in a different way. So,
but at the lead of it, it's a services direction, and I mean even hardware. People are talking about hardware as a service, software as a service, service as a service. I don't know. So,
right. And so services is there, and a key part of services is not what people tend to think of services because they think it's just consulting, and it's not just that. It starts with a thought of design and capability, all the way through the build or allocation of services, and then ultimately you got to run that and keep it running, and not just steady state, because if you do that you never evolve. So there's an innovation portion to that. That is exactly what we do as IBM to make sure that we engage at the very beginning, talking about client outcomes and where do they want to be today and later, and then we take them through to that objective.
You mentioned the word engage, and a lot of people talk about engage. So if I think about IBM today, and I think about the messaging that I see at different events and on the website and things, I see the word customer engagement out there, I see the word supply chain, and I see the role of the store. And if you think about that in order, you have to engage the customer, whatever you define the customer to be, right? You are connecting them somehow, and then there's a role that plays all the way down to the store level. How does that focus, fit with the different compartments of what you're offering?
I think you started with this view of a supply chain, and I think that's a healthy view when we think about the view of what we provide and the capability that we bring to our clients. Because at the end of everything that we do, we as a company, and then any company that's working with their customers, at the end is that end consumer, that end user. And that is where it all really starts, is what's the experience that end user is getting. And so when you start to walk your way back from the end user, you think about the value chain. What touched that end user? The point of sale, the store, the actual food and beverage they consumed. How was that food and beverage shipped there? Did it arrive fresh? How was it produced? What about the raw minerals? So now you start to see what people tend to call the supply chain, but behind that is also all of those operations that then now equal a value chain.
It's really every touch point. So the end user is the consumer themselves,
right.
Who is there, and of course they have their extended family of end users, right? And actually in the food and beverage industry, everybody is a consumer, if you want to think about it that way.
Right.
And so what you're doing is you're doing the touch points all the way down to the very end, but all the way up the ladder that goes all the way back.
All the way back, and if we were in the Chem Petroleum, we'd say upstream, downstream, right? And in today's, another catchphrase that people like to use, of course, is the circular economy, because it then goes to the consumer. And then, is it sustainable? Are we now doing it in a way that we can put it back into that loop and create a loop that continues to give back to that end user with a positive experience, as well as being sustainable for future generations?
Right, and sustainability is obviously a very key thing, and unless you know every step of the way, there's no possible way to actually really look at the pieces and how they fit together.
You just hit the key point on design. And this is a very key point to call out, is because sometimes we'll find ourselves compared to different players that contribute in that value chain, and those are a point in time. What we really focus on is, how does all of this fit together? Not just in strategy and something on a whiteboard, but in execution. And then also, when it comes time to pivot, if you don't see that whole picture,
Right.
then you're only pivoting on one portion.
So sometimes people are really in the weeds and they can only see in their silo, what it is that they do. And it sounds like, IBM is really looking at the whole picture holistically in
Correct.
there. And you're doing that through certain solutions, which are technology-based solutions. So, I note that, obviously artificial intelligence plays a role in that, and then data. Are the solutions all built around those two things?
I like the way you pulled together, Rob, this thought of a solution. And you called out a couple technologies, and you say, technologies and solutions.
Right.
And we avoid the thought that a solution is just technology, because as we've seen more often than not, the technology is about 10% of it, and 90% becomes a business process and change and people. And so we pull that together. I go back to this thought that technology can be easy. Innovation isn't easy. Technology can be easy once it's proven. So AI, and we sometimes call it, instead of artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence, because in fact, we are only augmenting the human capability by using it. So we try and be very careful about that. But yes, AI, analytics is another capability. And then I also call out the Internet of Things, IoT, because these are some popular phrases that are coming out right now. All of those are fueled by data.
Right.
All three of those. And so what's key, and there's this wonderful thing that you called at the beginning that I lead for our company and across all of our services, is this thing called blockchain. And I'll try not to say that word too many times. And sometimes I even just say the B word. But when we look at that word and that capability, all it's doing for those other capabilities or technologies is delivering two things that have been elusive. One is to make sure that we can share data across the silos that you mentioned in a trusted way, to make sure you can get access to data that you can see and I want you to see, but not everything else.
Right.
And then when you get that data, that it's high quality, that it is right, that it's immutable, that it's exactly what it's supposed to be. So those two things are what blockchain provides, and it fuels these other capabilities. So you think of those other capabilities that have been around, now think of them with better fuel, with better power, and this is just a catalyst. The B word is just a catalyst for this other change.
Well, listen, I think that, certainly this is a start of a much longer term conversation in the industry, one that we expect IBM will play a key role in. We're already aware that your engagement in the industry is going well beyond the IFBTA, but thanks to National Restaurant Association and other places that you can bring. Oh, well, CES. Right. CES seeing IBM bringing Food Trust there was something I wasn't expecting to see. So I think that the messaging is there, and we want to thank you for your support and welcome to the IFBTA.
Thanks, Rob. We look forward to doing lots of great things together.
Great. So Rob Grimes with the IFBTA, and it's been a pleasure to welcome IBM as our newest global industry partner, and also Jason Kelly, who General Manager of IBM Blockchain and Services and Trust, actually, to the IFBTA. So thank you.
Thanks, Rob.